everyone. Welcome to the Philadelphia City Council's Committee on Streets and Services. I know that the hour has come and the quorum has been established. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ahmad.
Present.
Councilmember Bass.
Present.
Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember Harity.
Present.
Vice Chair Squilla. Chair Young.
Present. Thank you, Mr. Pullen. I know for the record that a quorum of this committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing on the Committee on Streets and Services considering testimony on bill numbers 240305, 240380, 240382, 240384, 240418, 240419, 240420, 240424, 240434, 240469, 240473, 240475, 240493, 240495, 240496, and 240497. Before we begin, do any of my colleagues have any opening remarks? Seeing none, Mr. Pullen, would you please read the titles of the first bills?
Bill number 240418, titled Establishing a Parking Regulation on Addison Street between South 54th Street and South 53rd Street, Baltimore Avenue between South 43rd Street and South 44th Street, Irving Street between South 51st Street and South 50th Street, Springfield Avenue between South 51st Street and South 52nd Street, Washington Avenue between South 56th Street and South 57th Street, South 46th Street between Locust Street and Spruce Street, Pine Street between South 62nd Street and South 63rd Street, Melville Street between Spruce Street and Locust Street, South 54th Street between Greenway Avenue and Woodland Avenue, and also Bill number 240419, titled Establishing a Parking Regulation on Irving Street between South 59th Street and South 60th Street, South 49th Street between Regent Street and Chester Avenue, South 46th Street between Livermore Avenue and Woodland Avenue, Walnut Street between South 61st Street and South 62nd Street, Webster Street between South 51st Street and South 52nd Street, Sampson Street between South 61st Street and South 62nd Street, Walton Street between South 49th Street and South 50th Street, Locust Street between South 59th Street and South 60th Street, Locust Street between South 49th Street and South 50th Street, and also Bill number 240420, titled Establishing a Parking Regulation on Ellsworth Street between South 60th Street and South 61st Street, Ruby Street between Springfield Avenue and Chester Avenue, Sampson Street between South 60th Street and South 61st Street, Webster Street between South 60th Street and South 61st Street, Robin Street between South 56th Street and South 57th Street, Willows Avenue between South 53rd Street and South 54th Street, Cobbs Creek Parkway between Spruce Street and Locust Street, South 52nd Street between Chester Avenue and Springfield Avenue.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the first witness to testify on these bills?
The first witness to testify is Lester Emerson, Deputy Manager of the Philadelphia Parking Authority.
Good morning, Mr. Emerson. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. Good day, Council. My name is Lester Emerson, Deputy Manager for the Philadelphia Parking Authority. Thank you for allowing me to testify before Council regarding ordinances 240418 and 240419. I believe there's another ordinance, 240420. As well, establishing parking regulations. The Philadelphia Parking Authority has no objection to the ordinances previously read before Council and recommends favorable consideration. Thank you again for your time. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. Are there any questions of this witness on bills number 240418, 419, or 420? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Emerson, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Are there any other witnesses or any members, any persons present in this room to testify on bills number 240418, 240419, or 240420? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240475, titled Amending Chapter 12-900, Parking Regulations and Penalties, and Chapter 12-2800, Administrative Adjudication of Parking Violations of the Philadelphia Parking Code to add prohibitions and penalties related to parking certain large vehicles, including boats, motorhomes, house coaches, house trailers, truck campers, recreational cargo trailers, and recreational trailers under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the next witnesses to testify on this bill?
The next witness to testify is Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets.
Good morning, Ms. Marconi. Could you please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony on bill number 240475?
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on bill number 240475, introduced by Councilor Members Squilla and O'Neill. This bill amends Chapter 12-900 of the Philadelphia Code to prohibit parking of boat, motor homes, house coaches, house trailer, truck camper, recreational cargo trailers, or recreational trailers on any public street or city property for longer than 3 hours, or the posted legal parking limit, whichever is first, in the 1st and 10th councilmatic districts. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed ordinance and will work with the Philadelphia Police Department and the Philadelphia Parking Authority on the enforcement of the bill once it becomes law. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. And just for the record again, can you clarify where this bill applies to?
In the bill, it states the 1st and the 10th councilmatic districts.
Thank you. Are there any questions of this witness on bill number 240475? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240469, titled Granting Permission to University City Arove Corporation in order to demarcate the boundaries of University City Arove District to construct and maintain a clear nylon cord and/or plastic tubes and other ancillary facilities, including a maximum of 10 poles along, over, and in certain public rights-of-way and city streets, and/or to attach such demarcation facilities to existing facilities owned by other entities authorized by other city ordinances, subject to such owner's consent, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Please call the name of the next witness.
The next witness testifies Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets.
Thank you. Ms. Marconi, could you please again state your name for the record and begin with your testimony on bill number 240469?
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on bill number 240469, introduced by Councilmember Gauthier. This bill authorizes University City Arove Corporation, in order to demarcate the boundaries of University City Arove District, to construct and maintain a clear nylon cord and/or plastic tubes and other ancillary facilities including a minimum of 10 poles along, over, and in certain public rights-of-way and city streets, and/or to attach such demarcation facilities to existing facilities owned by other entities authorized by other city ordinances, subject to the owner's consent. The Arove boundaries will make maximum use of existing physical features which can be used for demarcation of an Arove for the University City area, consistent with Jewish religious law, including currently installed utility lines, existing walls and fences, and riverbanks and other embankments. In certain areas, such existing boundaries will be supplemented by a clear nylon cord to connect such existing features and create a continuous boundary, and in some areas, ledges may be mounted on utility poles subject to the owner's consent to create the proper form of boundary lines prescribed by Jewish religious law. A maximum of 10 poles and a few extensions of existing fence posts may also be erected. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed Arove, so long as all agreements with the appropriate city departments are executed. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Are there any questions of this witness on bill number 240469? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240380, titled Amending Section 9-213 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Farmers Markets, by adding a permissible location on South 52nd Street between Pine Street and Osage Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the witnesses for bill number 240380?
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Jennifer Aquilante, Food Policy Coordinator for the Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention Division of the Department of Public Health.
Thank you. Ms. Marconi, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on bill number 240380, introduced by Councilmember Gauthier. This bill adds a permissible location of a farmer's market on the west sidewalk of South 52nd Street between Pine Street and Osage Avenue. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed farmer's market so long as it will maintain 6 feet of clear, unobstructed footway. This concludes my testimony. Please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ms. Alaquante, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson Young, Vice Chairperson Squilla, members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Jennifer Aquilante, Food Policy Coordinator for the Department of Public Health, Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention. Thank you for allowing the Health Department to testify on Bill number 240380, introduced by Councilperson Gautier, which would allow a permissible location for a farmer's market on the sidewalk and curb lane of the west side of South 52nd Street between Pine Street and Osage Avenue. The Department of Public Health's Division of Chronic Disease and Injury Prevention is dedicated to creating a healthy, just, livable community for all residents and supports community-driven solutions to promote food justice in areas where access to healthier food is needed. Farmers markets are a great example of improving access to healthy and affordable food in neighborhoods that may be inundated with unhealthy choices. They connect urban communities to local and rural agriculture and not only help provide access to fresh fruits, vegetables, and other locally grown products, but also help support the local and regional farming economy. This season, almost 30 farmers markets will be operating in Philadelphia, most of which accept SNAP or Access cards and Farmers Market Nutrition Program vouchers, which ensures that there is more equitable access to fresh, local, whole foods. Get Fresh Daily, a mission-driven organization cultivating community well-being by integrating plant-based living experiences, farm-fresh produce, and culturally empowering wellness education, is opening the Freedom Greens and Garden Market. Located at 52nd Street between Pine and Osage at the corner of Global Leadership Academy and directly across from Malcolm X Park, Freedom Greens and Garden Market offers a culture-centric space for residents to access fresh, nutritious, and delicious foods within walking distance. The Health Department welcomes opportunities such as these to create a more sustainable local food system and enhance community resilience and well-being. We support this bill and efforts to promote and expand the network of farmers markets throughout the city, especially in those communities that could benefit from increased healthy food options. We thank Councilmember Gautier for introducing this bill and appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony today. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of these witnesses on bill number 240380? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240305, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the Vicinity of 795 North 24th Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19130, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Would you please read the name of the witnesses to testify on 240305?
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Please state your name and give us your testimony on bill 340305.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on bill number 240305, introduced by Chairperson Young. This bill authorizes 795 Brown LLC, the owner, to install, own, and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at Hilltown Tavern, located at 795 North 24th Street, all under certain terms and conditions. A total of 8 tables and 35 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located along the east sidewalk of North 24th Street and the south sidewalk of Brown Street. Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as it will maintain the minimum of 6 feet of unobstructed footway as outlined in the code. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ms. Chu, please proceed your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Member Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 240305, which was introduced by Councilmember Young on April 18th, 2024. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe at 795 North 24th Street. A minimum of 6 feet of clear sidewalk space will remain after the installation on Brown Street and 24th Street. This proposed encroachment meets the Complete Streets policy. The Planning Commission at its meeting on May 16, 2024 recommended Bill Number 240305 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee of these witnesses? Seeing none, is there anyone else in chambers wishing to testify on Bill Number 240305? Seeing none, Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240497, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the Vicinity of 5013 Baltimore Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19143, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the witnesses to testify on this bill?
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 240497, introduced by Councilmember Gauthier. This bill authorizes 5013 Baltimore, LLC, the owner, to install, own, and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at Cleo's Bagels, located at 5013 Baltimore Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions. A total of 3 tables and 12 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located along the curb line of 5013 Baltimore Avenue. Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as it will maintain 9 feet of clear unobstructed footway. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, would you please proceed with your testimony?
Good morning, Chair Member Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 240497, which was introduced by Councilmember Gauthier on May 23, 2024. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe at 5013 Baltimore Avenue. A minimum of 9 feet of clear sidewalk space will remain on Baltimore Avenue. This encroachment will meet the city's Complete Streets policy. The Planning Commission is scheduled to consider this bill at its meeting on June 5th, 2024, with a staff recommendation for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of these witnesses on Bill Number 240497? Seeing none, is there anyone in chambers wishing to testify on Bill Number 240497? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 240496, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the Vicinity of 6249 Catherine Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19143, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Please call the next witnesses to testify on this bill.
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 240496, introduced by Councilmember Gauthier. This bill authorizes Brecken Realty LLC, the owner, to install, own, and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at Macho's Delicious Mix, located at 6249 Catherine Street, all under certain terms and conditions. A total of 3 tables and 10 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located adjacent to the building of 6249 Catherine Street. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as it will maintain 12 feet, 6 inches of clear unobstructed footway. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Member Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. I'm Sarah Chu. I'm City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 240496, which was introduced by Councilmember Gauthier on May 23, 2024. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe at 6249 Catherine Street. A minimum of 12 feet and 6 inches of clear sidewalk space will remain on Cobb Street Parkway. This encroachment meets the city's complete streets policy. The Planning Commission is scheduled to consider this bill on its meeting on June 5, 2024, with the staff recommendation for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the committee on 240496? Seeing none, are there anyone else in the chambers wishing to testify on bill number 240496? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240493, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the vicinity of 1532 Snyder Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19145, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the name of the next witnesses to testify on this bill?
The next witness is testifier Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you. Ms. Marconi, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 240493, introduced by Councilmember Gilmore Richardson on behalf of Council President Johnson. This bill authorizes Marco Dundovich and Mary Lane Dundovich, the owners, to install, own, and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at Cafe Y Chocolate, located at 1532 Snyder Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions. A total of 3 tables and 6 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located adjacent to the curb line and property line of 1532 Snyder Avenue. Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as it will maintain the minimum of 6 feet of unobstructed footway as outlined in the code. This concludes my testimony, and pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairmember Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 240493, which was introduced by Councilmember Gilmore Richardson for Council President Johnson on May 23, 2024. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe at 1532 Snyder Avenue. A minimum of 6 feet clear sidewalk space will remain on Snyder Avenue. This encroachment meets the city's complete streets policy. The Planning Commission is scheduled to consider this bill at its meeting on June 5, 2024, with a staff recommendation for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. Are there any questions of these witnesses on bill number 240493 by members of the committee? Seeing none, is there anyone else in the chambers wishing to testify on bill number 240493? Seeing none, Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240384, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the vicinity of 944 North 2nd Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19123, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, please call the next witnesses.
The next witness is testifier Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Please proceed.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on Bill number 240384, introduced by Councilmember Squilla. This bill authorizes Irachmiel Daskal and Dahlia Daskal, the owners, to install, own, and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at Para, located at 944 North 2nd Street, all under certain terms and conditions. A total of 4 tables and 8 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located adjacent to the building line of 944 North 2nd Street. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as it will maintain the minimum of 6 feet of unobstructed footway as outlined in the code. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairmember Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 240384, which was introduced by Councilmember Squilla on April 18, 2024. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe at 944 North 2nd Street. A minimum of 6 feet clear sidewalk space will remain on Laura Street. This encroachment meets the city's complete street policy. The Planning Commission at the meeting on May 16, 2024 recommended a bill number 240384 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of these witnesses on bill number 240384? Seeing none, is there any other persons in the chambers wishing to testify on bill number 240384? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240495, titled Authorizing the Vacating of Beaumont Street from 51st Street to its terminus southwestwardly therefrom.
And would you please call the next witnesses to testify on this bill?
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Ms. Marconi, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 240495, introduced by Councilmember Gauthier. This is an administration ordinance requested by the Law Department. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorize the vacating of Beaumont Street from 51st Street to its terminus southwesterly therefrom at the northeasterly line of the Westchester and Philadelphia Railroad. This portion of Beaumont Street was included in a dedication for public use made in 1859, but was not plotted on the city plan. It is not paved or otherwise improved and is not in use by public traffic, and the Department of Streets is not desirous of constructing and maintaining a street at this location. This action will allow the land area of Beaumont Street to revert to private property and resolve the dispute between the city and an abutting property owner who is seeking to obtain clear title to this area. Department of Streets supports this proposed ordinance and recommends it to the committee for favorable action. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, would you please proceed with your testimony?
Good morning, Chairmember Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 240495, which was introduced by Councilmember Gauthier on May 23, 2024. This bill will vacate Beaumont Street from 51st Street to its terminus. Beaumont Street at its location was dedicated to the city for public use in 1859, but is not physically improved nor open to public traffic. This action will clear the title issue of the street bed and allowed it to be reverted to the budding property owner. The Planning Commission is scheduled to consider this bill at its meeting on June 6 with a staff recommendation for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. I do have one question. Are you aware if the budding property owner is essentially has development plans for the site, or how large is the site? Is it?
I believe the street bed is a very small area.
Okay.
It's a triangular area. It's dead end onto the railroad right-of-way. So there will be not a significant amount of land for redevelopment. Probably used for side yard.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do we know if the city, in vacating this street to allow the abutting property owner to gain title to that land, is the city charging this property owner? Like, is there a fee for the property owner assuming this land?
I don't believe so. The street bed was dedicated to the city for free initially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions of these witnesses on bill number 240495? Seeing none, are there any other persons in the chambers wishing to testify on bill numbers 240495? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, can you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 240473, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the Vicinity of 3743 Midvale Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19129, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Can you please read the, please call the next witnesses, excuse me.
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Marconi, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 240382, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This bill authorizes Rock Venice LLC, the owner, to install, own, and maintain encroachments, collectively the encroachments, in the vicinity of 4432 Main Street, 4436-42 Main Street, and 4436R Main Street. The encroachments consist of two bridges spanning the Manayunk Canal. The first proposed bridge is a bridge with a pedestrian walkway, which will replace the existing smaller vehicular bridge located on the west of the eastern corner of 4432 Main Street at the right-of-way of Main Street. The bridge will connect to the existing grade at the gravel level of the north side of the canal and cross the Manayunk Canal, connecting to the existing grade at the former towpath railroad easement on the south side of the Manayunk Canal. The second proposed bridge is an elevated pedestrian bridge located west of the eastern corner of 4432 Main Street at the right-of-way of Main Street. The bridge will connect to the second floor of the proposed new building at 4432-42 Main Street on the north side of the canal and cross the Manayunk Canal, connecting to the second floor of the proposed new building at 4436R Main Street on the south side of the canal. The Department of Streets will need more time to review the proposed plans, as the plans submitted do not reflect the existing bump outs at Main Street and Carson Street. We will continue to work with the property owner to address our concerns. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. For the record, Ms. Marconi, you were testifying on Bill Number 240382.
Correct.
All right. Mr. Pullen, could you please read the title of Bill Number 240382?
Sorry. Is that the wrong one?
Bill Number 240382, titled Authorizing the Installation, Ownership, and Maintenance of Various Encroachments in the Vicinity of 4432 Main Street, 4436-42 Main Street, and 4436R Main Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19127, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. And Ms. Chu, can you please proceed with your testimony on Bill Number 240382?
Good morning, Chairmember Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 240382, which was introduced by Councilmember Jones on May 2nd, 2024. This bill will allow for the construction of two bridges as part of a 243 unit residential development at 4432 Main Street, 4436-42 Main Street, and 4436R Main Street. One is a vehicular bridge with a pedestrian walkway. The other one is a pedestrian bridge. These bridges span the Manayunk Canal, providing access for the residential units on Venice Island to meet Main Street. On the plan as submitted, it appears that vehicular turns at the bridge will conflict with the recent built bump out and crosswalks. The developer has not yet demonstrated their plans to ensure the entrance do not interfere with pedestrian safety and crossing at this high-traffic location. This proposed bridge's encroachment plans were only submitted for the city's review a week before the Planning Commission's meeting date. The Planning Commission staff and other city agencies has not had sufficient time to review and comment on the submitted materials. The Planning Commission at its meeting on May 16, 2024 recommended Bill Number 240382 for an additional 45 days to review. And the Planning Commission is scheduled to consider this bill again on this Thursday on June 6. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Chu, one question. Can you provide me the date again the Planning Commission will hear this bill?
June 6.
June 6th. Thank you. Are there any questions of these witnesses on Bill Number 240382? Seeing none, are there any other persons in the chambers wishing to testify on Bill Number 240382? Seeing none, Mr. Pullen, we're going to go back to 240473.
Bill Number 240473, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the Vicinity of 3743 Midvale Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19129, under certain terms and conditions.
Mr. Pullen, please call the next witness.
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Ms. Marconi, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 240473, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This bill authorizes Michael Murphy, the owner, to install, own, and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at Taqueria Cresta, located at 3743 Midvale Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions. A total of 2 tables and 4 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located along the property line of 3743 Midvale Avenue. This proposed sidewalk cafe will maintain 10 feet of clear, unobstructed footway, which meets the minimum requirements in the code. The applicant will need to update plans in Eclipse before the Department of Streets can give its final approval to this application. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, would you please proceed with your testimony? Oh, you don't have testimony on this bill? Okay, thank you. I do have one question, Ms. Marconi, it's a general question. If the restaurant changes ownership, does that new owner then have to reapply for that sidewalk cafe license?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pullen, can we go back to, was it 240424?
Bill number 240424, titled Amending Section 9-213 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Farmers Markets by adding a permissible location at the 4th District Container Village located at 4862-70 Parkside Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19131.
Thank you. Are there any witnesses to testify on 240424? Seeing none from the administration, is any members of the public wishing to testify on 240424? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 240434, titled Amending Chapter 12-3400 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Use of an Automated Speed Enforcement System to Improve Safety on Roosevelt Boulevard by providing for the use, administration, and enforcement of automated speed cameras on Broad Street and making related technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please read the names of the next witness to testify on bill number 240434?
The first witness to testify is Christopher Pachalski, Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives in the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems.
Thank you. Anyone just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Committee Chair Young, Committee Vice Chair Squilla, and members of the Council Streets and Services Committee. I am Christopher Pachalski, Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives at the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems, otherwise known as OTIS, and I'm joined here by Marco Guarini, who is the manager of our Vision Zero program. OTIS, led by Deputy Managing Director Mike Carroll, directs the policies and practices that improve quality of life in all Philadelphia communities through safe and sustainable transportation and infrastructure. I'm here to testify in support of bill number 240434, entitled Use of Automated Speed Enforcement on Broad Street, introduced by Councilmember Mark Squilla. This bill would add automated speed enforcement cameras along State Route 611, better known as Broad Street. This bill would establish a corridor of speed enforcement cameras along Broad Street to reduce speeding and reckless driving, therefore reducing deaths and serious injuries on one of the city's most traveled roadways. It does not take an expert to tell you that traveling Broad Street can be dangerous. From 2018 to 2022, Broad Street experienced 169 fatal or serious injury crashes, 165 speeding-related crashes, and 456 pedestrian-involved crashes. These metrics put Broad Street at the top of the list for speed reduction. Automated speed enforcement, or ACE, is a proven method of slowing down drivers. 4 years ago, the city deployed speed cameras on Roosevelt Boulevard, at the time the most dangerous road in Philadelphia and one of the most dangerous in the state. In the years since, we've seen a remarkable progress on the boulevard. including a 95% reduction in speeding violations, a 50% reduction in pedestrian-involved crashes, and a 21% reduction in all fatal and serious injury crashes. These successes are real, and we would like to expand them to Broad Street. In addition to Councilmember Squilla, we would like to thank Council President Johnson, Council Members Bass, Phillips, Driscoll, O'Rourke, Brooks, and Thomas, and anybody else who I forgot, and I sincerely apologize if I did, for their support on this bill. We greatly appreciate the prioritization of the safety of our residents. The installation of the new system will be accompanied by strong educational messages, as well as a 60-day driver warning period, ensuring that the program is fair, measured, and transparent. We look forward to continuing our work with the Philadelphia Parking Authority as the program administrators and the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation on effective program communication, sharing the message that this program is not about issuing tickets, but about changing driver behavior to preserve human life. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of automated speed enforcement on Route 611. It is an effective way to increase safety by changing driver behavior in a simple and life-saving way by managing driver speeds. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you. Please, you have testimony to present?
I don't have testimony to add. Marco Guarini, Vision Zero Program Manager.
Are there any questions of these witnesses from members of the committee?
I have a question.
The chair recognizes Council Member Ahmad.
Thank you for your testimony. I had a quick question about the education part that you mentioned. Would this also be educating pedestrians who we have a lot of pedestrians darting all over Broad Street. So is that going to be a component in your education outreach?
Yeah. We want to educate everybody to be safe on Broad Street and all of our streets. We have a number of programs to educate people about being, safe pedestrians. We have a lot of literature that we are working on getting into the school district curriculum for kids to teach them to walk and bike safely to school or wherever they happen to be going. So yeah, we can include that in our safety messaging.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Council Member Bass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just really wanted to say that I'm very excited about the possibility of having more speed cameras and enforcement on North Broad Street. I've been talking about the danger, particularly where my district begins, around Broad and Lehigh, and I know that's where Councilman Young's district ends. And if you're coming north on Broad Street, as you approach the light, which many people try to hurry up if the light is yellow to get through the light, as they hurry up, one of the things that, if you're familiar with the intersection, you'll know, is that as you get to the top of the intersection, you can't see over the other side of Broad Street. And so there have been a number of fatalities at that location, and I think it may have been either last summer, it might have been the summer before that, but there were, I think, 3 fatalities within 3 months, all with people just trying to cross the street, and not necessarily crossing at a crosswalk, but because people were trying to speed and hurry up and get through that light, I believe is what happened. And, hit and killed someone and kept going. And so I think this is going to be a welcome addition to particularly that intersection on Broad Street. It's very dangerous, and I'm glad that we're going to be doing this. So assuming it passes through the vote, but I'll be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member.
Chair recognizes Council Member Squilla.
Thank you, and thank you, Chris, and thank you for the work on this legislation. Are we planning to do, like we saw on the Boulevard, where we have a study 1 year out after the implementation of the speed cameras, so to be able to get to see the change in speed and the number of, hopefully, decrease in accidents or fatalities?
Yeah, we can do a before and after study. We can look at the exact timing of that. We'll want to make sure that we have crash data, but I think what we can look at pretty quickly is the change in the speed profile of the drivers on Broad Street, and then we can do successive follow-ups as more and more crash data becomes available.
So you will do?
Yes, we will do an after study.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Can you describe to me what your public awareness and outreach plan is? I'm the average driver in Philadelphia. I use Broad Street here and there. Tell me how will you connect with me to tell me about these speed cameras?
Yeah, we want to make sure people are aware of it. We're not trying to get anybody. We want to change driver behavior. So what we did on Roosevelt Boulevard, we tried to purchase lots of advertising to let people know that this program was coming. So whether that was, you're driving behind a bus, you're going to see, maybe you see a bus tail ad on the shelters along the corridor, the bus shelters along the corridor. We'll try to put ads up. I think last time we did some radio ads also. So that's the kind of thing we're going to be looking to do. Furthermore, the legislation and PennDOT requires extensive signage. This area photo enforced for speed, similar to what we have on the Roosevelt Boulevard. So there will be, before installation, there will be very plain signage so that everybody knows that this is going to be enforced by cameras. And then finally, if you missed all that, or just if somebody was a little heavy on the gas one day, the reason for the 60-day warning period is so that people have a chance to get a violation in the mail that's just a warning, doesn't require payment, before the actual fines start to be issued.
So essentially, the public awareness or outreach, if I'm just a casual driver on Broad Street, I have to notice some type of advertisement on a bus or on some type of billboard or something.
We want to make it hard to miss this. We want to try to reach people in a bunch of different ways, whether that's all the mass media campaigns.
Yeah, so what are those ways? I'm asking. Can you describe to us what those ways are so we know that, what is your outreach plan? Is it already finalized or something you're still working on? Can you describe
no,
it?
it's not finalized. And maybe once we get a draft, we'd love to sit down with your office and get some feedback on whether you think it's effective and if there's anything that we're missing, so that we could try to reach just like you said, the casual driver on Broad Street.
Right. So you're asking us to pass out a bill that you are not yet ready to, engage the public on with this. If that 60-day window starts, so the 60-day window starts, when the bill gets signed into law, or when does that 60-day window start?
No, the 60-day window period starts when the cameras are up and running. So we're looking at September, October, November, and the parking authority, who I believe is testifying next, will be able to give you more information about the timeline that they're able to roll out. But we have more than enough time. The 60-day period does not start when the bill is passed. It only starts once cameras are installed and giving warnings on the system. And so we want the campaign to start well before that 60-day warning period, so people can know that this new system of automated speed enforcement is working.
So do you have a date on when the city will start advertising with SEPTA on billboards, things like that?
We don't have a date. I think we want to understand better the timeline of when the cameras are going to go active, but we have enough time to take June and July to get a really firm advertising campaign. This is the same thing we did on the Roosevelt Boulevard. The bill was passed out of committee and got passed by the whole council, and then there was a month's period while the system was being implemented where we developed the advertising campaign and then placed the ads. And just to be specific again, we're looking at all the mass media, social media advertising, messaging, radio spots to try to reach people a lot of different ways.
Yeah, see, I would like to see what that plan is. I know members of the committee would like to move this forward, but I would like to see what that plan is before we can move, before I would want to, really move something like this forward. So we can get a better understanding, so I can tell my constituents that who use Broad Street quite often that this is something that is happening. Broad Street, runs right through the middle of my district on both sides. I represent both sides, so I would love for my constituents to be able to fully understand what's happening here before we, hit them with $100 red light camera tickets. So that which can be I represent some of the most challenging residents in the city. So that $100 is something that could be taking food away from their families. So I really want to make sure people are fully informed before we start penalizing them, and we understand the different ways that they can be informed before we start penalizing them for these cameras. Chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla.
Thank you, Councilmember Young, and I agree too. And I know too, when you put these cameras up, there are also physical signage on Broad Street, correct, that will state every location of every speed camera.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, we have a requirement to put up signs before every single camera so that it's hard to miss it. That's a PennDOT requirement in the legislation.
Right. Because I also know too, if you use any of the travel apps too, they'll tell you speed camera, red light camera coming up, right, to make sure we're warned ahead of time. Yes. Yeah. And then I'll tell you, once I learned, once you do get a red light camera, you know where that camera is in the future. So not that I'm looking to go through red lights, but sometimes I remember getting a citation and saying, I didn't go through that red light, and when you look at the pictures, you go, well, yeah, I did. I guess I did go through that red light. So you paid a fine and you don't do it again. But as far as our reports, do we give the state reports on how these products are performing as intended? And so to look at it, is it a yearly report? I mean, do we do it? Because we have red light cameras at different locations. I know we do that through legislation, the speed cameras and so forth. So is that something that we have a record of?
Yes, council member. The city doesn't do it. The Philadelphia Parking Authority issues yearly reports on both the ARLI program and the ACE program to the state. That's a requirement in the state legislation that they have to do a yearly report.
So we have access to those reports?
Yeah,
to
they're all
see?
publicly available on the PPA's website.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there or have there been any other studies done to look at other methods of traffic calming along Broad Street besides the red light cameras?
Yeah, in fact, we have several projects right now that are funded, and we think this is the most effective method. We don't think we should rely solely on enforcement, but we think that needs to be coupled with engineering changes to signal the driver that they should drive at a lower speed. If it looks like a wide open highway where I can go really fast, if the signals are timed so that I can go really fast, people are going to drive faster. So we need to take other measures besides the automated enforcement system. And that's what we find most effective is when we use all the tools in our toolbox. We use automated speed enforcement, then we also redesign. So in 2022, we wrote and won a federal grant to construct medians along Broad Street from Cecil B. Moore to Allegheny Avenue to improve the safety for not only pedestrians, but those medians offer a visual cue that narrows the perceived width of the roadway, and that has an effect on slowing drivers down. I think PennDOT is also following up with their own project that should go into bid this year to install medians north of Allegheny on Broad Street. So we think we need to put all the tools together because it is the level of traffic violence on Broad Street is completely unacceptable right now, and it's going to take more than just one thing to do it. So we think this automated speed enforcement is important, but we have to layer on engineering changes. So those projects are in design right now.
Thank you. And for the record, who establishes where the cameras are placed?
Yeah,
along the corridor?
On the Roosevelt Boulevard, that was the parking authority and the city working together. There's good data that shows that there's an effect of speed cameras anywhere from a third to a half mile or more, both upstream and downstream of the camera. So we looked at spacing of about every mile or so along Roosevelt Boulevard, and we ended up when we had the initial installation, there were some gaps, and we later went and installed additional speed cameras to stay to that about mile to mile and a half spacing. Some of the camera placement will be based on engineering concerns. Can you just physically install the equipment at a given location? So that's something that we'll be working on the exact locations along the corridor, how many cameras with the parking authority.
I would urge the administration as well as the parking authority to consult with some of the district council members who understand some of the things that are happening in their district. As Councilmember Bass mentioned about Broad and Lehigh, we have just anecdotal data on certain things, so I would love for you to reach out to us before these cameras are placed in certain locations.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions of these witnesses by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the names of the next witnesses?
The next witnesses to testify are Nicole Brunet, Policy Director for the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia, and LaTanya Bird and Reverend Stephanie Evans, co-founders of Families for Safe Streets of Greater Philadelphia.
Thank you. In any order, please state your name for the record and give us your testimony.
Hello, my name is Nicole Brunet, and I'm the Policy Director for the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Thank you, Chairperson Young and other members of the Streets and Services Committee. I am testifying today in support of Bill number 240434, introduced by Councilmember Squilla. I am so happy to see this ordinance get introduced because of how dangerous North Broad Street and the rest of Route 611 are for everyone, pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. In 2023, the PA legislature passed HB 1284, making the Roosevelt Boulevard speed camera pilot permanent and expanding it to 5 additional corridors. Roosevelt Boulevard has historically been one of the most dangerous roads in our city. Since the cameras went up in 2020, violations have dropped by 95% and 36 lives were saved. That's what that looks like. Since the program has been expanded, it's necessary to prioritize other dangerous, high-speed, and high-fatality roads. Since the pilot went in, Broad Street has become more dangerous, with 11 traffic fatalities just in 2023. Between 2018 and 2022, Route 11 experienced 169 fatal and serious injury crashes, 165 speeding-related crashes, and 456 pedestrian crashes. With a majority of those fatalities occurring in the 5th District, that would be 108 fatalities out of the total of 169. Almost 70% of all bicycle fatalities have occurred on state roads in the last 5 years. These cameras on Broad Street and the other 4 high-speed corridors will slow drivers, begin to change driver behavior of careless and dangerous driving, but it's not a silver bullet. We need additional city and state funding to improve the safety of all the roads in our city. I support this legislation because as a safe streets advocate, I hear countless stories of heartbreak from families who waited and waited for their loved ones to come home, only to find out a reckless driver hit and killed them. In the last 2 years, close to 50% of all traffic fatalities were pedestrians. These are your constituents. They are someone's everything. Through this work, I have learned that we have been taught to think accidents are avoidable incidents. But they are crashes, and they can be avoided. These cameras have been proven to save 1 life every month that they've been on the boulevard. And through this legislation, you have the opportunity to make sure a loved one gets home safe. I strongly support passing of Bill 240434, and I thank you for your consideration. I would like to invite both LaTanya Bird and Stephanie Evans from Families for Safe Streets to tell their stories and what this legislation means for them.
Good morning. My name is LaTanya Bird. I'm a co-founder for Families for Safe Streets of Greater Philadelphia. I am also a founding member of the National Family for Safe Streets. Back in July 2016, 2013, July 16th. I lost my family on Roosevelt Boulevard. Their lives have changed, all of our lives, and my nephew, the only survivor of this crash, is 17 today. He was 5 years old when it happened, and he has been living without his mom and all of his brothers. Now, Family for Safe Streets, what we do is we provide solace for the families who lost loved ones, comfort for the ones who are injured. We work together for better outcomes, vision, and our vision is 0 deaths. And we want 0 deaths on our streets in Philadelphia. We have enough crime and everything else that's happening here, a lot to worry about. And our goal is to stop the people from driving so fast. Now, I live in a city, I grew up in a city, I ride the boulevard every day, the Roosevelt Boulevard. We do have cameras on the Roosevelt Boulevard, but there's a stretch. People know, you're warned. So I'm driving to work, my car, 40 miles an hour, and the great thing about it, by following the speed limit, I find that the lights flow right along, right? So then you have one crazy person who wants to speed up behind us, the people who's driving to the speed limit, and rush, just that one little stretch. And then they slow back down because the cameras are there. Now, the cameras, people need to know that they're having them in their neighborhood, right? Or on the boulevard or on Broad Street. I understand that, but people know that they're not supposed to speed either. It's in the neighborhood. Right now, with our national organization in New York, they just passed Sammy's Law. And guess what they did? They reduced the speed limits. Ours is 40. And I believe on Queens Boulevard, they reduced theirs to 25. So we're not asking to reduce speed limits. We're asking to capture the people who are not following the rules of the road. Just another experience of mine, driving down the Roosevelt Boulevard, Temple is there, the school. The kids, everyone has to cross. People are riding their bikes. A young man was riding right on the right-hand side of me. I was driving towards Cecil B. Moore Street, Avenue, Street, a good thing to call it. I still call it Columbia Avenue, but those of you who've been in Philly a long time know that it was Columbia Avenue years ago. However, this young man was riding his bike and right between me and the parked cars, and as soon as we get to cross, the intersection, a guy speeds up from behind me, and he hits this guy. Now, what was the purpose of that? How far was he going to get by driving over the speed limit? Another thing is we want to prevent people from speeding, but we also want to prevent people from the hit and runs. Do you know how, people just don't know. It may seem weird, but I feel sick every time I read the newspaper, hear the news, and read it on my phone of somebody dying. Somebody's family is going through what my family went through. I can't run out there and just give them a hug. Somebody has to do something. And the thing about this is the crazy thing. We traveled to Harrisburg lots of times. We talked to everyone on both sides of the aisle, okay? This is not a Democratic effort. This is not a Republican effort. This is an effort to save our people, our families, and our lives in the city. And Broad Street I am so happy our city is growing. The Met brings more people to our city. The stores that are opening up along that route, my family, we lived down there for years, So we would like to see people having a chance to cross the street safely. When those cameras goes up, people will heed and say, hey, okay, I gotta slow down. Unfortunately, they might take another road, okay? Yesterday we talked about Roosevelt Boulevard. Today we're talking about Broad Street, all right? I really don't want to talk about any more streets. I would like people to follow the speed limit. However, what's the next big wide street? American Street? That may be the next one, but it shouldn't be the next one, okay? And one more thing before I go. Everyone knows when you're riding along Broad Street, those ATVs, they just come out. They're popping the wheelies, they doing all kinds of crazy things. And I know you would love to catch them, okay? So maybe they won't do it there anymore, They'll find somewhere else to go. But my testimony here today is to ask you, City Council, to think about the people. Look at our kids' faces, okay? This could be your grandmom, your niece, your nephew. You will never know. When you lose one, you know how hard that is. My mom lost 2 generations right here. we could not, this is unbelievable. And some of the things could have been prevented. And yes, we are going into the schools, and that's the best, I love that. My daughter is a special ed teacher. She has a master's degree and all of that, and we're working on this. We're gonna get this safety program in her school as well, and teach the kids, how do you cross the street? How do you ride your bike? What does a stop line sign means? What does a red light means? Obviously, some of the younger people in our city today do not know that. They're driving cars, they don't even know how to put a turn signal on. They just drive. And nobody's enforcing anything. You don't want the police chasing them up and down Broad Street and causing more crash and more loss. Please, help us save our city and make it safe. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Please proceed.
Hi, my name is Reverend Stephanie Evans, and I would like to take the time to thank you, Chairman Young, and other members of the Streets and Services Committee, and I'm testifying in support of Bill 240404. I'm here to represent my son, Robert Evans. He was 37 years old when he was killed on January the 25th, 2020. He stepped out of his truck to get something to eat outside the 35th Police District. His friends decided to walk. My son decided to drive, and his friends walked. By the time they turned the corner from Park Avenue, if you're familiar with the city, Park Avenue, then Broad Street, my son was laying in the street dead. Within 5 minutes, they had talked about it. He just did not want to walk. He had gotten off of work. In the midst of all of that, my son, I got the phone call. We went to different hospitals, Einstein, Temple, Abington Hospital. My son was not there. So what happened was he died instantly, and he was so mangled, they took him straight to the city morgue. So we're looking for him. We could not find him. The mortician, who's a family friend, called the city morgue. They said they were too busy to look for his bodies because there were so many fatalities at the city morgue. So it took us a couple of days to realize where he was located at. But that's okay, because that's why I'm here today. From the tragedy to the trauma, something good is coming out of this. And so I live off of Roosevelt Boulevard. I've seen countless of accidents myself. I've lost friends and family members from vehicular homicide. My thing is, stop calling it an accident, because it is a homicide. We talk about gun violence, but the vehicle is a bullet. It is a bullet. When you put the car in drive, you pull the trigger. My son had just got engaged maybe a week before he got killed. In between that, my son worked. He was a father, a son. I know I'm bragging a little bit, but he wasn't in the system. The most he got was traffic tickets. So what I'm saying here is that what Broad Street, the speed cameras mean to me is extremely important, because in 2020, in my investigation on my own and my family, we found out that the technology was outdated. But since then, we've been advocating. Everything has it's been improved. And I'm so happy to sit here today, let's say, just pass the bill, support the bill, because we're making progress. I'm being proactive in this. I have a daughter that's a psychiatric nurse. She's a psychiatric nurse, RN, well, doctor. And so now, in between this, we were going to start our own business to help grieving families, because this trauma does not go away. The other part of the trauma is the court system, which I don't know you all have something to do with, but my son, the young man that hit my son, we walked past court like we're sitting here today. For 4 years, I've been walking past. I asked him to take a plea bargain. He didn't want to take it. So we're still going to court, and it's 4 years later. They have all the evidence. They have the vehicle. They have the DNA. They have everything they need. However, justice has been delayed. But I still have hope, because it's still going to work out for all of us. I want to prevent other families from having to go through the tragedy, the trauma, and then we're going to triumph if you pass this bill. I believe in the city of Philadelphia is still the city of brotherly love. In spite of what we portray, there's still love here. It's people like you that have the power to pass the bill. It's people like us that's advocating with the Bicycle Coalition, the Families for Safe Streets, and other. We're just a little ripple. If we keep chipping away at this crime, we will proceed. We will succeed. We will make progress. So I'm just saying, Broad Street, Please, even though my son wasn't killed at Broad and Lehigh, it was outside the police district. I thank the 35th District and the fire department and so many that really came in support in the midst of my tragedy to help me navigate through this, my only son. I have 2 daughters, but this was my only son. And so I'm saying to you in City Council today, please find it in your heart to continue with the speed cameras on Roosevelt Boulevard and on Broad Street. Is so important to pedestrians, bicyclists, and even the drivers. My son stepped out of his car. I guess he did not look both ways. You know, when you teach your children to cross the street, you say, look both ways, make sure the light. And now I'm telling my family members, before you step out of your vehicle, look both ways, see what's coming. And that's my testimony. So please, ma'am, please, sir, please, chairpersons, think about those cameras that's preventing other accidents like my son and not being able to locate your loved one remains. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. The chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for your testimony, and it's very moving. I think, obviously, putting these cameras up could help, but also what I really liked about the testimony was the ability to educate also. Educate people on what to do, and Madam, you just said about being able to look both ways, crossing at a corner, doing all the things that sometimes we forget when we have young ones, to make sure that we explain to them the proper ways of crossing our streets, right? And I think it goes a long way, because the cameras aren't going to solve every issue that we have. But I think the collaboration of those efforts and your efforts to educate people on what to do, how to look at the streets, how to cross the streets, I think is really so important. And we need to get back to those things in order to build safety. And if we really want to get to Vision Zero, that's going to have to play a role in this. So education along with technology and other things. So thank you so much for your testimony, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of these witnesses by members of the committee? Chair recognizes Councilmember Bass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you ladies for being here. I want to thank you for your testimony, and I want to express my condolences for your loss. I remember the case with your family,
Yes.
and particularly the young people who were killed, babies, who were essentially just, run over trying to get across the street. And it was heartbreaking then, it's heartbreaking now. And it's something that, it's just, it stays with you when you hear about, these generations, as you mentioned, just gone. And so I just really wanted to offer my condolences to you.
Thank you.
And also to you, ma'am, on behalf of the city of Philadelphia, I apologize that, there was such difficulty with finding your son after this tragedy took place. That should not have happened. So, my apologies. I did want to ask you if you could clarify the situation with your son's case. You said it did not go to trial yet, but
It did not go to trial. We go back September the 6th. However, it keeps getting postponed because he has a great lawyer. I don't want to mention his name. I don't know if I should do that. He has a fantastic lawyer. So it's going, it gets postponed. I go into court. I'm there 15 minutes. I've met with Larry Krasner, actually their office and the DA. I guess it's just the system is the system right now. I've done everything I can. I've met with the right people. So I just have to wait for justice to prevail. I have to be patient. I have to stay positive because I need closure on that part. Like I said, I only asked the young man to do 3 years only because he did not stop, to see if my son was still alive. So we're just still fighting it in court. I got a new judge because it keeps getting postponed. And by the way, they wanted to close my son's casket. I wouldn't allow it.
They wanted to what?
They wanted his casket closed. He was so mangled that he got recognized through his Eagles tattoos on his arms. But I would not allow them to close it because I wanted people to see what vehicular homicide does. So we're still fighting in court. September the 6th is another date. So we're praying we bring closure that day. we're being hopeful.
You know, I know that you don't want to call out, you know, the judge or the attorney or whatever, but I would suggest, and I would be happy to send a letter, you know, to the courts asking, you know, for the rationale and the reasoning behind, you know, the continued delays, and if they could provide an explanation as to the reasoning. And sometimes when you put a little sunshine and put a little attention on something, it just, you know, like people get right in line. They do what they were supposed to be doing all along. And so I would be happy to follow up with you on that.
Okay,
to try to, you know, get this thing going, because it's, you know, justice delayed is justice denied. And the last thing I wanted to say real quick, and I know you wanted to say something too, is that people drive out of control in the city. Every day. There's not a day when, you know, I come down, some days I come down Broad Street, some days I come down Kelly Drive. Doesn't matter which day I come down or which way I go, people drive crazy.
Yeah.
They, you know, they almost run into you. Somebody almost cut me off and like clipped me the other day. You know, it's just out of control, and I don't know why it's gotten so bad as it has, but clearly, you know, over the years, things have just progressed to a point now where people feel like they can do anything on the road. So we have to have some standards, we have to have some enforcement, and I think that this is just a small thing that can help hopefully save lives. So thank you. And you know you wanted to add something.
Yeah. With Stephanie's story, unfortunately, is not unique. We represent family members who years later have to go back to court and keep telling their story, keep asking for justice. There's too many of these cases that just get pushed and pushed and pushed. And, you know, we're asking for this because it will prevent more deaths, but the trauma of the incident is not enough. It is long lasting.
Yeah.
I mean, even LaTanya's
Yes,
case.
our person that was convicted, we've been going to court because he's trying to get his conviction, I guess, thrown out or something. So ours has been
11
postponed.
years.
11 years. We're going back in July.
He was sentenced to 11 years?
He was sentenced to, the one guy, it was two. One is out, he pleaded guilty, and the main person had gotten 17 to 34 years. However, he is appealing, he's fighting against the, I forgot what you call it, a PCR, is that it? I don't know what it is, but he's fighting against the judge that he had in his last trial. He's fighting against his own lawyer. I had to have our assistant district attorney, who used to work for the city, come back. Our family has been sitting there hearing the story all over again. His family is bringing like 20 to 30 people when they come in, and we're talking about how he was a refugee and he should be given less time. So that was the whole thing. That's what we're going through now.
Right.
And it's really ridiculous and crazy. You know, he said he missed his son, and my nephew's father was sitting right there. He said, I miss all three of my sons, and I'll never see him again.
Yeah.
You know, so it's an ongoing thing. I mean, we all have rights, so this young man is getting, you know, he's getting his rights served. We did offer, the district attorney's office offered him a deal. He didn't want that. He, you know, to drop a few of his charges, but keep the same time. He wants less time. So it is ongoing, not just for me. We represent other families.
Yes.
We go to court with them.
We go to court.
And it's really crazy to be sitting there and the person just
Walk
smile, happy,
past.
walking on out, family giggling and laughing, and we're sitting there, you know,
Horrible.
Yeah.
suffering in silence.
Yeah, because you revisit the trauma every time you go to court, and then when you don't receive the remorse, like I had told the DA, I would just love to see some remorse, even though we're not, and I can see him, when he walks past me out of the court. I need to see it, just for my own peace of mind. I said, I don't see it. But I did only ask for 3 years, and he refused that, which is not a lot for my son's life.
Not at all. Not at all. Thank you for being here, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your testimony. Are there any other questions of members of the committee of these witnesses? Seeing none, thank you again for your testimony. I appreciate that. Mr. Pullen, are there any other witnesses to testify on this bill?
No panel witnesses, a few on public comment.
Is there any member of the public wishing to testify on this bill? please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony?
Good morning. My name is Adrian Valonis. I'm a resident of Old City. I'm testifying in support of Bill 240434. Thank you, Chair Young, Vice Chair Squilla, and other members of the Streets and Services Committee for considering this measure. I have things written here. I think the other witnesses did a very good job explaining why this measure is necessary in our city. Route 611 Broad Street is one of the most dangerous streets in our community. It's completely unacceptable for anyone to think about the possibility of dying when they cross this street, any street in our city. Route 611 has been the source of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deaths, fatalities, serious injuries, and permanent traumas, lifelong traumas. Many, I think a majority, probably about 2/3 of these have occurred within the 5th District. This is unacceptable. The city has pledged that it will adhere to Vision Zero at some unspecified point in the future. Vision Zero is the idea that 0 people should die due to traffic fatalities. No one should be killed by an automobile. No one should die on our streets. And yet, still, this happens. I urge this committee to support this bill in order to prevent additional deaths. It is very, very important that the committee unilaterally support this bill and others like it in order to limit driver speeds everywhere in Philadelphia. This is not the only street that causes significant deaths in the city. Roosevelt Boulevard was one of the worst and most dangerous streets in our city. It remains so. That has largely been addressed due to traffic cameras reducing driver speeds to relatively safe levels, but it's still not enough. Additional funding for engineering and more traffic cameras on all major arterials are necessary in order to save lives. That concludes my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of this witness by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else of the public in the chambers wishing to testify? Please just come forward to behind the rails. I think there's a if there's any, excuse me for a second, I'm sorry. If there's anyone else wishing to testify on this bill from the public, could you please come behind the rails and have a seat? Please have a seat at the table, or if there's, yeah, if you're next, sit at the table, and then someone can sit at the rails. Yep. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please proceed with your testimony.
No problem. Good afternoon, Chair Young and esteemed members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is John Walker. I'm a proud resident of District 5, and I live in Center City, Philadelphia. Today I stand before you in support of Bill 240434. It's been a relief to see this ordinance on the table. North Broad Street is a stressful and unsafe environment for everyone, pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers alike. We all deserve to feel safe navigating our streets. We should aim to replicate the success story that was Roosevelt Boulevard. Back in 2020, that road was notorious for speeding and accidents. Then the city implemented a pilot program with speed cameras. This resulted in a staggering 95% drop in speeding violations, estimated to have saved 36 lives. The Roosevelt program's success is why we need to prioritize other dangerous roads. In recent years, North Broad Street has seen a tragic rise in accidents, with over 10 last year. This isn't acceptable. Traffic fatalities are a result of infrastructure that encourages speeding and limited, inconsistent enforcement of traffic safety laws that already exist. Chair Young, particularly concerning is the data from our very own 5th District. Between 2018 and 2022, Broad Street had 169 crashes involving fatalities or serious injuries. 165 of those were due to speeding, and hundreds of those involved pedestrians. This is why I wholeheartedly support Bill 240434. But this isn't just about statistics, it's about saving lives. Speed cameras are a proven life-saving technology. They enforce existing lives, deter dangerous driving, and ultimately make our streets safer. This issue hits close to home for me because I frequently cross North Broad Street on foot to grocery shop, go to restaurants and bars, and visit friends and family. Vehicles constantly fly down this road, and it feels like I'm taking a big risk just across the street. We can't afford to lose another life on North Broad Street. Let's learn from Roosevelt's success and implement this life-saving technology. Please vote for Bill 240434, and let's make our streets safer for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Marvin Robinson. I'm here just to support the bill. But Friday, in my own community, and I live in the 4th Ward, I'm the second vice president of the ward. Curtis Jones is the ward leader. My sister was going to the store, and she was coming from the 59th and Hartford Avenue, and a car just hit her, kept on going. She's sitting in the hospital with a broken rib, a broken hip, but I thank God my sister's still living. And the only thing I want to comment on, I think when Cindy Bass says, we don't know where all these cars, why these drivers is the way they driving. I think I have a little solution, but when the when stimulus checks came out, three things happened in my community that I saw that increased since those checks that came out and gave people money: drugs, guns, and cars. So I'm only here on the behalf of my sister and the behalf of Roosevelt in this bill. I was even coming here to testimony, but it so happened that this just happened Friday to my sister. So whatever it takes for us as a body, and I thank y'all for having this meeting because I wasn't even expecting to come here and testify today, but by my sister, just came from the hospital seeing her yesterday. Something has to be done with this the way these people are driving. I mean, something really has to be done, not because it's my sister, but that can happen to any of us. And we do need more safety in the city of Philadelphia. I don't care where you put the cameras at, because the cameras do, anytime they can catch me flying through a yellow light and give me a ticket, I think when cameras is installed, we at least can get an idea of who the people are that's fleeing the scene, that's hitting people like this. Because they could have killed my sister. It's like many people got killed on Roosevelt. I always see on the news, majority of my life, at that area always, like they said, that's the worst. But throughout the city of Philadelphia, it's getting worse just like that. So whatever y'all decide and make a decision, I hope it be a decision for the people, for us to be more safe. And I thank y'all for allowing me the testimony today.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and my prayers go out to you and your family with the speedy recovery of your sister.
Thank you very much. She's doing better because I'm going to make her laugh, but thank you all.
Thank you. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Alexander Roderer. I live on Carlisle Street, right off of Broad and Pine Streets. Thank you, Chairperson Young and other members of the Streets and Services Committee. I'm testifying in support of Bill 240434, introduced by Councilmember Squilla. North Broad Street, we've heard, is currently among the most dangerous streets in the city. It desperately needs automated speed enforcement. I live less than a block from South Broad. I cross it on foot every day. I move up and down Broad on the Broad Street line often. All along Broad Street, I witness how common it is for drivers to speed, to run red lights, putting themselves and everyone around them at risk. I've personally nearly been struck several times due to cars speeding down Broad and running red lights just to get to the next light and stop faster for no reason. I've seen people in crosswalks have to literally jump out of the way of cars. I've seen cars smash into light posts and planters, destroying them. If you walk along Broad Street, you will see the remnants of a light post or a planter that has been smashed into by a car. And that could have been a person on the sidewalk that was killed instead. Crossing Broad Street should not be a dangerous impediment to getting around the city, and people shouldn't be treating a major street in the middle of the city like a racetrack. The Office of Multimodal Planning, the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems, and the Department of Streets recently released this really great Vision Zero Philadelphia Automated Speed Enforcement Expansion 2024 report that I think we've talked about a little today. It has a wealth of information in it. It shows how quickly and significantly the cameras reduced speeding on Roosevelt Boulevard. I think it's worth underscoring that according to the study, 63% of the proposed automated speeding enforcement corridors in the proposed expansion pass through areas where more than 30% of the population live in zero-car households. This includes my household and the households of many of my friends and neighbors who live on Broad Street. We don't own cars. We use public transportation. We walk around our neighborhoods. We're not the ones speeding, but we have to suffer the ill effects. The report categorizes trips of 8 miles or more as commuting trips. 68% of the proposed automated speed enforcement corridor trips are above 8 miles. A large number of corridor trips, a large number of these drivers on these corridors are commuters. Less than 1% of corridor trips are under a mile. This data suggests that local residents will not be disproportionately impacted by automated speed enforcement violations. Most of the people speeding through our neighborhoods don't live in our neighborhoods. Because if they did, they would care enough about us to not speed. I urge the committee to support Bill 240434 to actually change driver behavior. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions of these witnesses, members of the committee? Seeing none, is there any other members of the public wishing to testify on this bill? Seeing none, for the record, Mr. Pullen, would you please read in the names of folks who submitted written testimony to testify on this bill?
One moment. Written testimony has been provided by Nick DiToronto, an East Kensington resident, David Talone, a Brewerytown resident, Leila Finkelstein, a Center City resident, Brian Elmore, treasurer of the 15th Democratic Ward, Janet Golden, committee person of the 15th Democratic Ward, Adrian Lohman, a 2nd District resident, Summer Ann McCullough, a 5th District resident, and Vision Zero Philadelphia's Automated Speed Enforcement Expansion 2024 report.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. I would like to thank all of our witnesses today for testifying and joining us at this hearing. We will now end the public hearing and go into a public meeting. I note for the record that a quorum of the committee is present, and the chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on the amendment to bill number 240305.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to Bill Number 240305. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment Bill Number 240305 be adopted.
Second. Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill Number 240305 be adopted. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it. And the amendment to Bill Number 240305 has been adopted. The chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on the amendment to Bill Number 240420.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer the amendment to Bill Number 240420. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to Bill Number 240420 be adopted.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill Number 240420 be adopted. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. The amendment to Bill Number 240420 has been adopted. And the chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on the amendment to Bill Number 240473.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to Bill Number 240473, and a copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to Bill Number 240473 be adopted.
Second. Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill Number 240473 be adopted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. The amendment to Bill Number 240473 has been adopted. And the chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on the amendment to Bill Number 240475.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to Bill Number 240475. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to Bill Number 240475 be adopted.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill Number 240475 be adopted. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, Ayes have it. The amendment to Bill number 240475 has been adopted. Now, the chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on bills number 240305 as amended, 240380, 240382, 240384, 240418, 240419, 240420 as amended, 240424, 240434, 240469, 240473 as amended, 240475 as amended, 240493, 240495, 240496, and 240497.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that bills number 240305 as amended, 240380, 240382, 240384, 240418, 240419, 240420 as amended, 240424, 240434, 240469, 240473 as amended, 240475 as amended, 240493, 240495, 240496, and 240497 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of these bills at the next session of council.
Second. Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that bills number 240305 as amended, 240380, 240382, 240384, 240418, 240419, 240420 as amended, 240424, 240434, 240469, 240473 as amended, 240475 as amended, 240493, 240495, 240496, and 240497 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of these bills at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. The motion carries, and bills number 240305 as amended, 240380, 240382, 240384, 240418, 240419, 240420 as amended, 240424, 240434, 240469, 240473 as amended, 240475 as amended, 240493, 240495, 240496, and 240497 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and with a request that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading at the next session of council. Before we leave, I just want to remind my colleagues that the Streets and Services Committee has a public meeting at June 6th at 9 a.m. only considering one bill, 240532, related to the installation of some security bollards in the 5th Council District. And with that said, that concludes the business of the Committee of Streets and Services today. I want to thank you very much for your attendance and your testimony today.
Great job.